we do introduce the Magi that are into the story, and then in verses 3 through 6, we get this other guy. The interesting thing about him to me is it's a little bit confusing because we're familiar with Herod in the Gospels, but there's more than one.
Yes.
So it's getting straight who this one is and how he relates.
There are a lot of them.
Yeah. So maybe take us through that.
It took me years to finally realize how many different Herods there were, and that the different stories are all about different ones, but yet they're all related. So this is Herod the Great. He is the original of the Herods. He's the one who chose the name and sort of started the line. He is, as I mentioned this today, he's Idumean by descendancy. And the Idumeans, for the most part, trace their descent to Edom. And Edom is the descendants of Esau, Jacob's brother, born to Isaac. So they are descendants of Abraham, but through Esau, not through Jacob. And they're often at odds with Israel, just because since the time of Jacob and Esau, they've been struggling with each other to try to maintain dominance over each other. It goes back to the blessings and curses that God gives through Isaac to Jacob and Esau. But not all Idumeans were descendants of Esau, but most were. Those that were not exiled settled back in the land, or after they returned from exile from Babylon, just like when the Jews returned. So in a sense, he's a descendant of Abraham. He has an understanding of Jewish law, particularly because he lives and rules in this area. But he is the one he convinces Rome to appoint him as ruler over this area. So he serves Rome, which makes the Jews not happy to start with. He's not Jewish, which also makes them not happy. And he sort of follows the law, but only when it suits him. So that makes them mostly not happy. Herod the Great is the one who rebuilt the temple that Jesus is going in and out of throughout the Gospels. That was the construction of Herod. This is referenced a couple times in the Gospels, where particularly Jesus talks about he's going to destroy the temple. They freak out about it, and they talk about how long it took Herod to build it. Herod liked to build things. He did a lot of building projects. He was also very paranoid. So that's sort of where we come into this part of the story. He executed his favorite wife. He executed multiple of his sons, anybody he thought was going to try to overthrow him. So it was common for him to go on these killing sprees, in a sense, and just start executing people that he claimed were part of a plot against him. And whenever Herod started on something like this, it, got a little stressful in Jerusalem.
So this wasn't
just the people around him, but anybody he accused.
With Jesus, right?
It was not. He was definitely, this was his normal. And again, part of the reason the Jews did not like him, because he just randomly started killing people. Of course, since he had Rome's backing, they couldn't do anything about it. Unless they wanted to fight Rome. I find it interesting in Matthew's relaying of the story that Herod, hearing the Magi story, concludes that it must be the Messiah who was born. Because when he calls the chief priest and teaches the law, he doesn't ask them, have you heard of a baby being born who's good, king of the Jews or something. He literally asked them, where's the Messiah to be born? So his conclusion is, this must be the Messiah, thus I'm going to kill him, which is not the correct response to hearing that God has fulfilled his promise to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. But that is his response. I want to stay in power. This is a threat to my power. I'm going to find out where this Messiah is, and I'm going to kill him. Of course, the chief priests and teachers of the law, they just answer the facts. They don't really care, which is sort of funny, is they don't start sending out spies and stuff. And like, where is this Messiah? The Messiah's really bored. They're all like, yeah, well, if it is the Messiah, then it's somewhere in Bethlehem. That's where he's supposed to be born. Because that's what the prophet Micah said.
One of the more fascinating books I read was a book put out by O'Reilly, the commentator or whatever, about killing Jesus, and he goes into the historical background of Jesus. And some of these guys were, from the way he described him, it wasn't this, they were appointed to these positions basically because of their influence and wealth. And it just amazes me how much control they actually had over the people to actually order these deaths and get support from the Roman government to make it happen, or to have it happen.
Really, that was one of my big focuses, was trying to get the Old Testament in front of us, which is why I started cutting out a lot of the quotes in Matthew. I'm like, well, you can go look at your scripture portion for Matthew, but the Old Testament is really the things that you may not see, you may not go and look up yourself. One of the interesting things is to always look around once you go back to that passage. Like, this is what they quoted, and then look at the rest of the verse. Look at the verse after. Look at the verse before. A lot of times these passages are full of details that point to the Messiah, as I pointed out here in Matthew 5:2. A part they didn't even quote. They were just answering the question, like, this is where he's born. But this is, not only did God prophesy where this Messiah would be born, he indicates who the Messiah would be. And he does this over and over again. Continually dropped hints in the Old Testament so that when Jesus is finally here, they can look back and say, oh, yes, he was the prophesied Messiah. And he told us all these things beforehand. We just didn't understand them.